Okay, now this slide is very involved and a great one to study. You'll see this elsewhere and in different ways because there are so many innovations now with processing, especially that pulp natural honey process down on the bottom. But the two main processes that you really need to understand for this course are natural processed or sun-dried coffees and wet processed or washed coffees. Okay, so these are the three most common. Pulp natural, that's like a part wash, part dried. Uh, some call it semi-wash, some call it honey. There are a lot of distinctions on that third pulp natural process. Now there's something that I want to emphasize also. The ICO has quality control limits, the International Coffee Organization, for safe storage of specialty coffee. Okay, so after all of this work is done, whether we use natural processed or wet processed methods, the ICO requires that we must reach and store a moisture content of 8 to 12.5% moisture inside those finished beans. So that way we can control whether or not mold or a bacteria grows in the coffee. And at that 8 to 12.5%, it'll protect the flavors and quality of our coffee while protecting it from any negative growth. You should be able to use moisture conductivity meter. You'll be taught how to do that in your practical exam, and you should be able to determine if that coffee is still within safety standards as set by the ICO, that 8 to 12.5%. Okay, so natural processed coffees or sun-dried coffees. When we pick these coffees, sometimes they're left on the trees just a little longer. And the reason is they actually start drying a little on the trees and it makes the job easier. So then after picking them, we will winnow them or toss them, and so you're removing some of the sticks and leaves. And then we actually dry the cherries. We dry the coffee inside of the cherry. So we'll put it out on a patio and rake it under the sun. And then you take that dried fruit, that hard dried fruit, and you will hull it, and you should remove the fruit. And then you should, when it's, sorry, I skipped over the store condition. Basically, you're just trying to reach a target moisture, 10 to 13% kind of. That's with it. I don't like that 10 to 13%. You're gonna reach a point though where the fruit is dried, and you wouldn't want to get down to 10%. But the fruit is dried so that you can actually break that fruit off in the mill. Now, wet processed coffees, you're going to pick the coffee, of course, and it'll be sorted. It might be hand sorted or sorted in a floating tank. It can be done both ways. And this is to help distinguish those ripe or unripe or overripe cherries. And then it'll be pulped. So typically it'll go through a machine or another method for removing some or most of the fruit. And then it'll soak and it'll ferment. And what happens is then the water really helps to remove and just eat away at any remaining fruit on there. And then it'll be washed again. Okay, so this is a general process. Some different places, Kenya, Sumatra, other places will have different wet processing methods, but they all follow this basic step and stages. And then afterward, there needs to be some kind of a drying process, raking or storing on raised beds so that air can flow through. And at this point, they'll still be in the parchment. The parchment is kind of a shell that's on the outside of the bean that was protecting the bean from the fruit. And then they'll be stored. Okay, so they'll typically rest within that husk to a target moisture content, 10 to 13%, and then milled. So when they're milled, we're going to remove that parchment. Like I said in the beginning, you shouldn't be having parchment in your green coffee before it goes to the roaster. But for each of these types above, every coffee needs to be somehow sorted and graded, and then it needs to be bagged and shipped out. And so the steps in the process may vary slightly. Now we said after the coffee was grown and harvested, it should be washed and dried, processed and shipped. Now on the top right, we see raised beds that are drying coffee in their parchment. And they're trying to reach that target moisture prior to hulling. So they need to get dry and hard so that the hulls, the parchments, will break off. Now, although traditionally this was often done for economic and practical purposes, increasingly today, natural or sun-dried coffees have become really sought after. People use words like fruit bombs to describe them, and they love that body and the sweetness and some of the fermented, winey flavors that'll come out. So, drying the coffee before removing some or all of its fruit, some, as in the honeys or pulp naturals, will result in the fruit compounds actually being absorbed by the coffee seed. And so you can understand that, right? When you have a sweet fruit like a raisin or a plum or a strawberry, when you dry it, just the sugars concentrate. And so if the coffee bean is still inside, it's going to absorb some of those. And on the bottom right, we can see multiple colored beds drying coffees in stages. And some may be various fruit contents, different stages in the drying process. So increasingly, this is becoming a very scientific method, whereas traditionally, sun-dried coffees were the most common because it wouldn't use a lot of water, and a lot of these places don't have access to a lot of water, and it would just be done on someone's patio or on the backyard, and it'd be on the ground or on racks just using the sun because the sun was free. They didn't have mechanical dryers and big processing centers to ship their coffee with traditionally. So there may be another, many other methods, but not pictured would be patio drying, which I just mentioned. So essentially drying the coffee on the ground or cement or a concrete patio. Now, if you're drying it on the ground, you really need to be careful and make sure that you're maintaining consistent raking so that you're ensuring an even moisture distribution and drying. You don't want the coffee to be too thick on the ground because on the inside there can be a lot of moisture and bacteria or funguses can grow. And so drying on the ground does require constant and vigilance. All right, now quick test. Who can fill in all of the blanks from before? Just kidding. For your exam, you really just have to understand the main differences between these methods, especially in regard to water, when and how the water is used, and the fruit, like when we take the fruit off. Earlier in the wet process, we'll pulp it with machines and we'll ferment it and we'll clean the bean before going to the mill. Whereas in the natural process, we're going to be drying the fruit on the bean and sending it to the mill with the fruit still on. Some of those basic differences are what you really need to grasp and understand for your foundation level content. Now, a very important part of the processing is removing defective beans. We need to sort them by size or quality. Okay, so when we're sizing a coffee sample, there are a number of reasons why we do this, right? It can affect roast or quality, it can affect sales and other things. Now you see here coffee screens typically come in what sizes. I've filled in the blanks for you. 10 to 22 range is the most common, especially finding really 14 to 20 being the most common. And these would be mu, 10 mu or 18, but really what it is each size represents a 64th of an inch. So if you have a 10 screen size, that's like 10 64ths of an inch, and that'll be the diameter of the hole. Whereas if you have 20, twice as large, it's 20 64ths of an inch, the diameter of the hole. And whether or not that bean can fall through that screen down to the next one, from 20 to 19 to 18 to 17 to 16 and so on. So we're going to shake the beans from the top to the bottom, and wherever the beans land, that means they can't pass through the next smaller hole, so then they're classified as a 18 or a 19 or a 14 or a 15. And we use these screens to establish a standard size for a sample of green coffee, which should be representative of the batch. So this is something that you should have to do for your practical exam, is to take a sample of coffee and then figure out what percentage of coffee is falling within a certain range of screen sizes and determine if that coffee matches the requirements of your sample. So how might coffee sizing affect roast? Well, think about it. If you've got really large beans with a lot of surface area in the roaster, and then small beans with very little surface area in the roaster, how might the roasting speed be different, right? Heat has to enter into that bean, and moisture is going to be lost. So those large beans, they will roast slower than the small beans. There are other variables like density, of course, and water moisture content that come into play. But assuming that all this coffee came from the same plants in the same area, it's very important to make sure that our roasts are similar. What about quality? Can the size of the bean affect quality? Not really. In general, there may be differences, like if you have really small coffee seeds, coffee beans, there may be differences compared to really large coffees, but some companies or some countries, like for example Kenya, will give a sizing definition which appears as if it's a quality definition. For example, Kenya AA is their largest coffee. That's a screen size 20, 22. And so if it's a Kenya AA, you're thinking AA, that must mean it's super good. Because if I was in class and I got a B, someone else got a AA, I'd be really jealous because they got an A or a AA. Well, unfortunately, quality is not key in terms of size. However, for sales, some people really like the looks of a really big, round, full-looking bean. It looks healthy. And other blending. If you have an espresso batch and you have some really nice big Colombias or Kenyas, and you blend them in with some smaller Guatemalas or some Yunnan coffee from China, those larger coffees and smaller coffees can grind differently, or they might fall differently within the bag. So you want to make sure that your blending is also consistent. Or if you blend the green coffee before you roast it, that's going to be very critical, like we said earlier, when it hits the roaster.